The good news is I do usually go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Environment and Services Committee on the 1st of November. I'm sure you'll appreciate we have a very heavy agenda before us this evening with some very hot topics. So I will be keeping time on speakers to make sure that we get through the agenda as timely as possible, because I'm also aware that some of our officers have a distance to drive to go home and the storm is coming in. Before we start with the agenda, I just want to point out a piece of very good information, very good news you may have seen today, that Tumbledown Farm has been awarded £100,000 community grant. And this comes to support the building works, which will enable us to continue with our plans. So I'd just like to publicly thank those officers and members and volunteers who have been involved in putting that grant application together, because that will help us massively develop Tumbledown Farm as a community facility for multiple users to use. So it's very good news. Also, just like to identify to you now, unless there's any objections, I'm going to be moving items 12, which is the removal of bench on Westbourne Road, up the agenda. So I'll be taking that directly after public participation. And then I'll also be moving item 8 up the agenda, which is fun fairs, because we have a lot of public here to see those two items on the agenda. So we will be moving them up unless I have any objections from anyone on the committee. No. Moving on then, can I have apologies from absence, please?
We have apologies from Councillor Brock, and he's been substituted by Councillor Hubble.
Thank you very much. I have also seen apologies on email this evening from Councillor James and Councillor Kanji. Do I have any other apologies, or do I have a proposer to move those forward? Councillor Thurman, a seconder, Councillor Tewkesbury, and all those in favour. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving forward, declarations of interest. I myself have a declaration to make on fairgrounds. I know and have worked within the charity sector with multiple operators that have operated on the sites and operators that may wish to tender in the future. And that is non-pecuniary, and I have been granted dispensation to take part in the debate. Any other declarations of interest? No. Should anything arise during the meeting, as always, please feel free to raise that at that point. Moving on, item 4, minutes of the last meeting. Do I have any comments on those meetings, on the accuracy, or do I have a proposer to approve them as written? Councillor Bell to propose, Councillor Toft to second, and all those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to councillor questions, and we have a few questions being asked this evening by Councillor Dickinson. I think the best way to do it is you ask each one individually and then receive the response from the officer. So over to you, Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. The first question is, will Weymouth Town Council have a self-service reporting portal similar to Dorset Council to report issues about cemeteries, benches and parks and allotments, etc.?
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. We do currently have an online form that visitors can complete if they've got any issues, but that this hasn't ever been brought forward as a PID, so if you would like it explored further, I would suggest that PID is submitted.
Thank you. The next one was, how is our carbon output measured?
So for the new solar panels that the council installed, we have solar edge units as part of the equipment that gives us live data on the panel energy production and use and the amount of carbon saved. For scope 2 electricity use, we have all of our assets needed in fact, so we can assess electricity use. And for scope 1, we track mileage on our diesel vehicles. With overall council emissions, we use the decarbonisation report and action plan that has emission values against various actions. As we're able to remove these, we can then reduce our emissions by that amount. These figures were assessed and calculated by the Carbon Trust to help us produce the report. Scope 3 emissions are much harder to understand and track specifically, as these are indirect emissions and sometimes out of our control. As most of these are proxy values today, as we tackle them, we are working on how to get an accurate reading and then how we can track the reduction.
So we don't know, it isn't an accurate reading then what we're doing. So why do we bother to do it? That would be my obvious question. But thank you anyway. Will a review of the catering outlets be carried out to ensure that they are not costing Weymouth taxpayers money?
Councillor Gray, I think. Okay, Councillor Gray is Chair of Finance and Governance. Do you have a response to that question?
Chair, I'm going to make reference to your accounts, which are due out next week. So this is almost live data. The first 6 months of this year, sales of £154,383 in the two outlets. Costs at 132,938, leaving us a profit margin in the 6 months to the end of September of 21,445. So I've been asked questions before about the cost base. So that's all wages, all on costs, all utilities, bank charges, all central costs, everything you can think of comes out of our cost base. So rather than costing us money, we're actually making money. Now, I think what's beyond the question is, should we do a review? And I think whatever activity we do should be under review. So I would support a review at some point, but let's be clear, we're making money. There are other things that are costing us money that are further up the priority list as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, if the council wants to do a review of catering, you can vote on that. But at the moment, currently, we're actually making a profit.
Very much, Councillor Gray. I'm hoping that.
Well, that's just the half year, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, so we haven't got the bad months coming in yet.
No, but the biggest cost in the, if you like, the biggest cost in the good months is generally the staff, which are, if you like, hours based, temporary, so they always go down. The hours have gone down as well. You're right. I mean, more than the bad months, I think it's probably weather related. If you took today's prediction at the half year and extrapolated that out, which we do on a forecasting basis using the forecasting tool, it's circa 43,000 that we'll make. But of course, you know what the weather does to catering, particularly outside units. So we need to keep it under control. What I'm most pleased about, and since the catering units come under the control of the resort team, there are lots of benefits. I did list some of them, but we've had people promoted out of the catering units into the town's structure. So that's a way of bringing that forward. We lead the way on single-use plastic and sort of a different menu, which I know we've had some feedback about. So we are trying things all the time, and Will and the team manage that like they do deck chairs or any of the other activities we do. So there are benefits, I think, to doing that. Should we do a review? I'm agreeing, absolutely. But there are other things higher up the priority list that we should do a review on, I think, that do cost us money. You know, deck chairs, nursery, green spaces, digital advertising, all those sorts of things would come higher up for me because they're more prioritised in terms of finances. The other thing I would also say is probably from a capital point of view, which we don't report on, and I know we've talked about this before, we don't report capital. the catering unit's capital is probably worth more than it was when we started 5 years ago. So we're not losing any money.
Thank you very much, councillor Gray. And the next question, councillor Dickinson.
If Weymouth Town Council book dates for the use of the pavilion car park, but no one books the site, are Weymouth Town Council still liable for any fees?
Simply, no.
No, that's 100% no, yeah. Will any operators of the pavilion site be required to provide toilets and the sites up at the clock?
Pavilion forecourt, yes, and that is within the report, at the clock, no,
They don't have to.
no.
And lastly, will Weymouth Town Council be looking into charging for the use of our toilets?
So we currently charge at the Swanley toilets.
Yeah.
And it is something that can be reviewed on a case by case basis, and these are working we have looked at. So for example, if any refurbishments are suggested to the committee as part of that, those suggestions, it could be an option that we charge for those particular toilets. I think it's worth our members noting and remembering back in, I'd like to say 2019, 2020, we looked at charging for the King statue, but the costs associated with installing infrastructure to do that were extremely high due to that particular site. So it's on a case by case basis.
The reason I ask is the cost of all the water. The cost of the water is 50,000,
Mm-hmm.
58,000 pounds a year. A small parish council, we've got a large parish council. We've got to look at recouping some of our costs there.
Agree. Thank you very much, councillor Dickinson, for those questions. I've not been notified of any other councillor questions in advance, after the request for the agenda. Councillor Taylor, I think you did submit one, but you're happy to ask those questions underneath the service plan?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Moving on to item 6 on the agenda, which is public questions. Before we go into public questions, councillors in the room will be already aware that we do live stream these meetings. So any comments made in the meetings are available to the public. But I would just like to reinforce that to our guest speakers, that any comments you are making are in the public domain and could potentially be picked up by the press. Got 3 speakers who have submitted to speak this evening. 2 are on fun fairs and 1 is on the bench removal. There's a few other members of the public here. I just wanted to check, because what I'm going to do is take those public questions before the agenda item. So we'll go in, I'll ask the officers to introduce, we'll then do the public questions and statements on that item, and then we'll go into debate. Was there anyone else from the public here to speak on any of the other general questions around the council services? If not, we're going to move on to the bench removal, and I will ask the officers to introduce, followed by the member of the public. So if nobody else is indicating to speak, we are going to move forward then with item 12 on our agenda this evening, which is the review of removal of the bench to Westbourne Road. Going to ask, first of all, the Assistant Town Clerk, Charmaine Denny, to introduce the item, and then ask the residents to make their representation.
Thank you, Chair. At the Services Committee in May, we had an application to move a bench at Westbourne Road. You may recall that part of the process we do install a notice so that residents in the area are aware that potentially it could be being removed and it's going to be discussed at the committee. When we put the notice, we did receive mixed comments from residents, so it was split at that point. So at that meeting, it was decided that because there had been no reports to local police either, there was no antisocial behaviour reports at that time, it was decided that we'd review this again in 6 months' time to see if there had been any further changes. What I would say is I have been in contact with the local Save the Neighbours team, and in the past 2 months there have been no reports of antisocial behaviour at this particular bench. However, I am aware that there are residents in the room this evening that will, they've got a different thought process behind it. They live and breathe it every day, so they're aware of what does take place and the antisocial behaviour that the bench does attract. So I think the best thing, Chair, is to introduce the residents, because they've probably got a bit more background to this, and So,
Thank you very much. Dan Clark, I'm going to ask now, the residents, who were down to speak on this item, so it's Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Please come forward, if you're happy to use the microphone. I'm sure Councillor Brooks will switch it on for you. I'm going to ask, again, because the item on the agenda this evening, if possible, if you can try and summarise your statement within the 3 minutes, that would be brilliant.
Can I just take it? Oh, that's perfect, it's working. Well, thank you very much, everyone. First of all, we would like to just give you the top copy of the statement that's from 27 residents from around the area, including ourselves, which we are hoping perhaps you've all had a chance to have a look at because we've emailed it out in advance. So I won't waste any of my precious 3 minutes going over that, simply to say that these are all the residents that we've been in touch with, and there's photographs at the back showing the litter over 9 months. The litter is associated with the antisocial behaviour. What I've got, and I hope you won't mind if I read it so I don't forget anything, is just a very few points I'd like to make to bring you up to date before you have your discussion and decision. So the first point is about crime itself. Antisocial behaviour is a criminal offence, of course, and local residents, including ourselves, have continued to observe antisocial behaviour, including drinking, drug dealing, drug taking and associated littering on and around the bench. This has gone on from last October through the time of the May meeting and on till now. We've asked Dorset Police on 3 occasions in October 22, August 23 and September 23 about the possibility of a routine police patrol down Westbourne Road to deter ASB. We've had no follow-up contact from Dorset Police at all. We know that the current officer report, your officer report, states that Dorset Police received no reports of antisocial behaviour around the bench in the last 2 months, as the Assistant Town Clerk mentioned. However, we'd like to point out that this doesn't mean there was no antisocial behaviour taking place. It means that for various reasons, no local resident has reported antisocial behaviour that they have been aware of. Or they may have tried to report littering associated with antisocial behaviour, but we understand the police won't record this, and I'll come to that in a minute. So we'd like to ask members to bear these points about crime in mind when making their decision on whether or not to remove the bench. I do have examples I can give you of actual antisocial behaviour that's been seen by various residents, but I don't want to use up my 3 minutes by explaining them. So if you want me to, ask me at the end, please. The next point is about littering. Littering is also a criminal offence and it still continues around the bench. And my husband, David, will have hopefully given out some photographs here, which we hope you can pass round so you can see them. That's fine. 1 picture per month for 9 months showing typical littering. Okay. In a written response to an inquiry we submitted in August 23, Dorset Police made it clear that any reports from residents should go to the local council if they're about litter and not to the police, even if that litter evidences antisocial behaviour. So, we have done that. We would ask members to bear in mind that if the bench remains, littering associated with antisocial behaviour is likely to continue and will have to be dealt with. Currently, litter around the bench is sometimes cleared away by concerned local residents. We don't believe that this is a viable long-term solution. We hope members will agree that relying on the goodwill of local residents to clear litter up is not okay, particularly bearing in mind the nature of the litter, which can include sharp objects such as broken bottles. If local residents report every single incident to Dorset Council of littering, this could put a strain on their overstretched public service. And finally, if responsibility for street benches had remained with Dorset Council rather than hanging over to yourselves, probably the bench would have gone by now. And finally, we just wanted to say, leaving the bench in place now is not doing nothing. It's actually facilitating ongoing antisocial behaviour that we're all having to experience. Thank you very much. I hope that was Here enough, and I'm happy to answer any questions if it would be helpful.
Thank you, Mrs Johnson, for that information and those pictures. Before we go into, debates, I'm going to ask councillor Gray, I believe this is in your ward, is it not?
It is, yeah.
Have you got any comments you'd like to make to the committee before?
Only that it was my original proposal to have it removed because of, what Mr Johnson is saying. So, I mean, it's not on a main highway road, so for me, you're never going to satisfy everybody, but I think in this particular case, the nuisance, if I can call it that, outweighs the necessity for the bench. I've spoken to a few residents about walking to Logmore and resting on the bench, but there have been one or two compared to the overwhelming sort of support for removal of it, really. And there have been other benches that have been removed, notably at Logmore Hill, for the same reason.
Thank you very much. Mr Johnson, if you'd like to take this seat, and if anyone's got any questions, I'm sure we can bring you back in.
Of course, thank you very much.
Okay, so on my list here to speak, so far I've got councillor Bell, followed by councillor Roos.
Firstly, I'd just like to start by thanking the residents for the communication we've received over email. The evidence that's been submitted has been excellent, and I know we've been in contact via email this week. We asked you to come back to sort of support the wish for the removal with some evidence. We've got the photos in place, we've got the signatures from the local residents. For that reason, I'd like to support the removal of the bench, and I would like to propose that we go make the amendment that the bench is removed, so alter the recommendation. I think from the nods I can see around the discussion here, I think that might be a good way to proceed. So I'd like to propose that the bench is removed.
Thank you very much, councillor Bell. I'm just going to check first of all, any other comments, but I will take you back when it comes to a recommendation. Councillor Roos.
I'll second councillor Bell with that proposal. Just in case people aren't aware, that bench, which is in my ward, is very close to actually the residents' houses. A bit closer than you can imagine, like it's not quite outside a shop, it's not outside on a main highway. It's actually like a stone's throw from a resident's house. And there's multiple residents surrounding that. So I think it's worth bearing that in mind. Other factors are that in the area you have properties of multiple occupancy. You also have supported housing for people who are struggling with evictions. It is something that will, I think, continue to draw antisocial behaviour if it isn't removed. But I also think it's unfair to leave that impact on residents. If it isn't removed, it is something you will have to continue putting up with, which, to be honest, isn't fair. On the whole police reporting thing, I have to regularly make reports sometimes to the police, as we all do as councillors, but even in my role within the community. And part of that is antisocial behaviour that the police don't deal with, such as people falling asleep in front of people's doorways because they've been inebriated or had a good time. And that includes in front of vulnerable people's properties. And
I'm going to bring you back to the item on the agenda,
which I'm getting to. But I just want to point out that when I phone the police to make a report, they tell me to contact the manager of the property, or they shirk the responsibility to somewhere else. So residents might be making reports about antisocial behaviour to the police and being told to go elsewhere. And not only that, you can't use the email address for the police anymore. You have to phone, or you have to use the internet and navigate their weird system that they have at the moment on the internet. So I have to say that I will support residents when they're saying there's antisocial behaviour and the police say that there isn't. I'm afraid there's no way for the police to know because they don't make it easy to report antisocial behaviour.
Thank you very much. We do have a proposal now seconded, but I just want to, before we move forward, we are now moving forward on the recommendation for removals proposed by councillor Bell, seconded by councillor Roos, and that's the item we're now debating for the recommendation. Councillor Taylor.
I think we're there.
It's because the public one isn't turned off.
Right, okay,
Right.
that's better. I think, I'll carry on anyway. I'll probably be voting in favour of this one, but one avenue I feel that hasn't been explored is Dorset Council. Dorset Council have an antisocial behaviour team who deal with minor antisocial behaviour. And when I get this in my ward, I usually report to them, and they actually can do quite a lot on these minor things. They work with the police, but they also work with the youth workers and the people who deal with younger people and the other sorts of people who are often responsible for this sort of antisocial behaviour. So I think there was probably an awful lot more that could be explored, rather than just looking at taking the bench out. I always think it's sad to remove a bench. I had it in my ward a few years ago where everybody wanted the bench removed, and about a year later, they were all campaigning to get the bench put back again, which was quite amazing because I had an elderly gentleman writing all over the wall next to it saying, I want my bench back. So I am always mindful that there are always two sides to these arguments. I think because this has been going on for so long, I will be voting in favour of removing the bench. But I do feel that sometimes there's more that we could do. And it's probably just a long shot because I don't know the bench, the area that the bench covers, apart from what I've heard tonight. But it would almost be worth making a case to have a bin put there. I know DC don't like putting bins, and you'd have to really make a strong case because they're really quick at taking them out rather than putting them in. But it's a shame that the antisocial behaviour team of the council hasn't been considered, and a really forceful argument made for a bin. As I say, I'll be voting in favour of removal because I think this has been going on for too long and it's become an ingrained culture at that site. But these are the sort of things that need nipping in the bud as soon as they start causing a problem, rather than letting them go on for so long. And it's not working anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'm just going to pick up on one point around the bin. I know because the comment you made 6 months ago when we looked at that to explore if we could have a bin installed there. The officers did look, and I'm going to ask the assistant town clerk just to come back with a response.
This is something I think we've discussed before, Councillor Taylor, where Dorset Council's policy is to take your home with you, to take your waste home. As a town council, we wouldn't install a bin on that particular piece of land because it isn't our land. And Dorset Council would only install a bin in exceptional circumstances, and I don't feel that this would meet those circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. From what I've heard, I think I would agree with the removal of the bin. Can we be assured that the bin will be removed, that the bench will be removed completely, all parts of it, and perhaps even refurbished and put somewhere else? Because if one wanted to do it on the cheap, you'd simply remove the 9 wooden slats and leave the rest there. So if we could have it completely removed, refurbished, and then put somewhere where it's more suitable. Thank you.
I believe Councillor Wakeling has already tried to dip this bench for his ward, so I believe that's on horizon, Councillor Brooks. Okay.
Can I dip it for my ward as well, please?
I was first.
James in a hat.
I refer you all back to the benches policy. Okay, I don't have anyone else indicated to speak. So we have a proposal by Councillor Bell for complete removal, seconded by Councillor Roos. Can I go to a vote now? All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much, members. And thank you very much to Mr. and Mrs. Johnson for the work they've done in supplying this evidence and working with the council to hopefully get a result that is appreciated by the local residents. Should you wish to leave, you're more than welcome. Now, members, as indicated, we're going to move on to item 8 on our agenda this evening, which is fund fairs. Again, I'm going to ask the assistant town clerk to introduce the item and what she's done is put together a very quick presentation to outline some of the key findings within the reports. Then going to ask the residents who've indicated they'd like to speak to make representation before opening it up to debate. So, Assistant Town Clerk, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So as described, it is a very quick put together presentation, but it is just to highlight, because it's a big report, and pick up a few bits. So background, historically, we've always had many years, always had a operation fairground on Pavilion Forecourt, Jubilee Clock, and that's mainly for key bank holidays, school holidays and so forth. Jubilee Clock has traditionally been a fairground for Carnival Week, around Carnival, and a couple of years ago, the operations manager introduced additional dates. So the last couple of years, we've seen additional dates at Jubilee Clock. Beach attractions are put on there because beach attractions are very separate to what we're talking about this evening. Beach attractions are the sites, we've got 4 or 5 sites on the beach, which have the helter-skelter, snails, those types of attractions. They are different to what we're talking about this evening, they're separate licenses. Just to make that clear. Last year, well, I say last year, earlier this year, you may remember we all sat around this room for over 3 or 4 meetings discussing fairgrounds. And my aim this evening is that we try and get this finalised. Let's just try and get something confirmed this evening to move forward. So not just our officers can continue and get those bookings made, but it also provides some clarity for our operations as well, and also for our hoteliers and other businesses and stakeholders. When we met earlier this year and back in the last year, there's lots of feedback from the Hotel Association, from other businesses, Pavilion and so forth. And that's why there's lots of discussion. So there was talks around antisocial behaviour happening in the area. And, you know, we've had long debates about that. I'm sure I don't have to go over them, you'll remember them. After lots of to and fro, what we came to was a resolution where the fairgrounds are back at Pavilion Forecourt with some additional terms and conditions. Those terms and conditions are discussed in a moment, but that's where we got to. So fairgrounds happened, additional terms and conditions applied. However, going forward, it was after this committee asked that a working group was set up to look at other options. What can we do for 2024? So the working group was formed. Councillor Bell chaired the meeting that we had. It consisted of both members, and also we had members of the youth council, and that's what a different dynamic to the meeting. And I hope Councillor Bell would agree that that was really helpful. And hearing the views of young people did bring a different dynamic to those meetings. Initial meeting, we had a long list, so we had a map. We literally looked at any site in Weymouth that we thought you could have a fairground, and the list was quite long, I'd say. But it soon became a short list because there was very many different reasons why those sites weren't suitable. And the short list included the Swanley car park, the back of the Pavilion, North Quay, and the car park associated with Logmore and Network Rail. Also Logmore car park, and also Network Rail, South Western Railway, by the back of B&Q, that car park there. So those were the different options that we looked at. So we had one of our project officers literally looked at each of those in detail, and there's an appendix within the papers that will show you the different reasons, the pros and cons for each of those sites. However, we did conclude our final meeting that the fairground should remain at Pavilion Forecourt and Jubilee Clock for the 2024 season. I'm really sorry, but that's come up quite small up there. But it is in your papers, but those are the dates that we're proposing for the Pavilion Forecourt. So May Bank Holiday, Whitsun Week, 29th of July to 31st of August, October half term and Father Up Night. So looking at it, calculating those dates, it's exactly the same amount of days as it was this season. Jubilee Clock, we're looking at 12 days, 9th of August to the 21st of August. And the reason why it's 12 days is the new Carnival Committee is suggesting that we have a carnival, or a carnival may be held, it hasn't been booked, it hasn't been confirmed, on the 14th of August. Traditionally, Carnival Week's been on the 3rd Wednesday, so it would be the 21st of August next year. So through having a fun fair on the Jubilee Clock from 9th to 21st of August, it covers both those Carnival Weeks should they go ahead. And there are showman's rights associated to Carnival Week. There's no dates associated to So the owners' rights are in place for Carnival Week, so having those dates covers both weeks, dependent if one happens or doesn't. Terms and conditions being suggested for the pavilion forecourt are the same as what we had this year. So on non-event nights, the fun fair should close at 9:30. On event nights such as fireworks, 10:30. Set up and breakdown of equipment should not take place after 10 o'clock or before 8 AM. Fun fair operators to reduce level of music and announcements for the last hour of operation each day. Provide toilets, and on event nights to employ 2 security staff. So that's additional security, because I think there's concerns around antisocial behaviour happening, for example, on firework evenings. In addition, I think it worked really well this year. Board members and also the chair of services and environment services committee agreed those rides. So before any booking took place, we would have some liaison about if we were happy with the rides in the Carnival forecourt. I feel that worked quite well. Jubilee clock, the same terms as this year pretty much. So north of the clock, larger rides, south of the clock, smaller rides. No noisy rides, nothing that's visually intrusive. And also this year introduced that there's no duplication of any rides on that site at all on the beach, because something I noticed was you could go to the Jubilee clock and there'd be a big chairplane further along the beach, there's a smaller one. So to make it more variety for our residents and visitors, there'd be no duplication of rides at attraction sites to the Jubilee clock. That's a whirlwind whistle tour of the report, but the report has been circulated as in the floodplain one, so if you do have any questions, please do let me know.
Thank you very much. Going to now go to our public speakers on this in the list that was submitted and into the office. First one I have is Claire. Apologies, your surname's not on my list here, but Claire, who is the chair of the Weymouth Hotel Association. And just to check, you're making representation on behalf of the association this evening, aren't you?
Some of the members in our association, yeah.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm going to ask you to try and summarise your statement within 3 minutes if possible.
I've done my best. Right, good evening, councillors. As you know, I'm the chair, and I'm speaking on the members who have raised issues during the August 2023 with the fun fair. These are also your residents. They're not just businesses. They live and work in Weymouth all year round. I'd like you to remember that. Here are just a few of many of the reports which was issued to me. There's 7 in total. Issue 1, I'll start with the clock area, which you may all be aware of, the type restrictions and conditions placed on the previous complaints. No music, no adult high-octane rides, and only children's small rides placed at the south side of the clock. Height restrictions were also in place because of businesses and views opposite. This seems to work with the restrictions. However, reports were made as concerns were voiced of a ride which was over the height placed at the south side. This was actioned with removal, but ended up staying as agreed by all. Also, no oxygen ride to be placed here because of the restrictions was placed on there, despite the emails of persuasions to our residents. Now we move on to the forecourt. Issue 2. There was evidence footage of antisocial behaviour in the area, which was mailed to certain councillors. No action was taken. Issue 3 was a breach reported in the opening times of the fair. This was clearly against the agreement time. This was actioned with a warning, what we believe. Issue 4 was deliberate, fake, malicious reviews posted on business sites. The contents of the reviews all detailed the evidence footage which was sent to those councillors. In issue 2, we believe the only action taken was a mail reminding all councillors of the confidential rules with sharing or discussing evidence sent to anyone not related to council. Issue 5 was reports of intimidating behaviour toward the business owners, your residents. We think it was to steer of them of any further reporting that we can only imagine. Issue 6 was a further breach of the times in the lease when breaking down the fair. It was reported that between 10 PM until midnight, the rides were being dismantled and shipped off the forecourt by 8 o'clock the next morning. The lease states not after 10 or before AM. Evidence of this report has been seen by myself and Richard, our deputy. It's only been shared with us as the residents do not want to get any repercussions to their businesses, so we're not allowed to share with Weymouth Town Council. However, with CCTV footage cameras all along the seafront, I'm sure Weymouth Town Council could seek this evidence for themselves. And lastly, issue 7. It was suggested by Weymouth Town Council that businesses forewarn any guest bookings for August 23 by a mail to explain what they can expect when they arrive with the fair in town. This was followed through and was reported back to me by one business alone that they had just
30 seconds remaining.
they'd just lost over £8,000 worth of cancellations following their mails. All this was reported to Weymouth Town Council officers, and I believe no action has been taken so far. As you will see from all, I've reported the fair is causing so much disruption and their financial losses to your residents that it really needs relocating for summer 2024. It's clear your residents businesses have lost trust and faith in their town council. They do not look forward to summers any longer, they only fear them. Would you like to consider all these points when voting tonight? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Next speaker I have is Mr. Phil Say. Again, Mr. Say, you can try and summarise your speech for 3 minutes.
I can, thank you. I'm Phil Say, the Director of Weymouth Pavilion CLC. I'm here to talk about FunFest. Just to give you an idea, obviously I sat through a lot of meetings at the start of this year and last year, as was discussed. I've tried on a number of occasions this year to report to the police antisocial behaviour, as Councillor Roos has just said. That's an impossible or a near impossible task. Emails bouncing back again, and I don't have enough time to search through websites to find an easy way to report antisocial behaviour. We had toilets covered in swastikas, spray paint on walls, various insignia and signs, lovely stuff that we've got to deal with, general vandalism to toilets. And so during the summer, our toilets, which aren't public toilets, end up being public toilets. One of the councillors earlier on mentioned the cost of water. I laugh at the cost of water and think about how much we spend in providing non-public toilets that people think are public toilets and then get abused. It gets worse and worse. The fairground is an amplification of the pain in the backside that it can be antisocial behaviour. And then fireworks on top of that is not quite Armageddon, but is a disaster. So we have to employ security, a number of security guards each Monday evening through the summer. And I have to stand there like a muppet on the front door, stopping youths coming in to abuse the toilets and to abuse the facilities. So much so that I considered closing on the last 2 Mondays of the summer at the end of August because it was costing me money, which is a farcical thing with thousands of people still on the seafront. So it is absolutely not tenable to carry on doing the same thing. It's a disaster. It's just a pain in the backside. I really want the fun fair to work. I get on with the operators really well. Financially, it's just a pain. Dealing with youth, Kate Weller, the mayor, was there announcing the fireworks one evening and saw a group of 40 youths run past and admitted at the time she didn't want to get in the way of them. 2 SIA, one at each end of the forecourt, is laughable when you have 300 or 400 people there. They're just inadequate completely. If it was a venue, we have to do a minimum of 1 per 100. They're doing 1 per 200, 1 per 300. So not at all adequate. I could go on, but I should make you stop me after 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Say. I know there's a number of other members of the public here this evening. I'm just going to check before I move on to councillors' debate. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to speak? Councillor Gray?
Yes, I draw your attention to page 9, site fees. Just looking for reassurance from the officers that, it mentions the, 82% increase in the fees that we have to pay. Just looking for reassurance that we won't be subsidising, i.e. we will be passing on the full cost of what we pay Dorset Council to the operators, because the residents shouldn't be subsidising the rent. I'm just looking for some reassurance. It's not written in that way, that's all.
Could I ask the assistant town clerk to answer that question, if you can, Gray?
So Dorset Council do charge us per parking space, and for example, October half term, as you've explained, it was an 82% increase, so operate and operate. We pass on the site fee and also plus some for us as a council, so that's how we make our profit. So every single penny is passed on to the operator.
Thank you.
Very much. Just checking, is there any other members of the public? Members, before we open up this item for debate, I'm just going to remind you all, again, we are in a public forum, so if we do start to talk about costings, we went out to tender this year, we will have to go into confidential session as the paper alludes, and because I know this is an important subject to our residents that have attended this evening, I would like to try and leave as much of this debate in the public as possible. So what I'm going to ask is for general comments first, and then if there is anyone that wishes to discuss the income and revenue, then we may have to go into public session, but I'd like as much of the debate to be left open as possible. Going to ask for speakers, and first to speak, I've got Councillor Bell, who was the chair of the working group.
Firstly, thank you to the other members of the working group, youth council members that attended the meeting, and also the work of the officers, which I believe involved quite a lot of back and forth with various landowners. We did try to find those other site locations. See Councillor Toff nodding away. There's big discussions about what our preferences would be. There was a general understanding that yes, finding an alternative site would be the preference, generally amongst the working group, but unfortunately, that hasn't, a feasible option hasn't presented itself elsewhere. I'd also like to note that there is an omission from the report. The proposed operating dates for 2024 currently start on the 4th of May to the 6th of May, which I believe must be the bank holiday weekend. The Easter weekend, Easter holiday dates have been omitted and should have been on the report. Those dates are the 29th of March this year until the 14th of April. I believe that may need to go through as an amendment to the recommendation. Thank you.
I'm just going to seek clarification that from the assistant town clerk that doesn't increase the date, the number of days stated within the body of the text. It's just the dates that are missed from the list of dates.
Yeah, that has been omitted, so apologies for that. The number of days isn't within the body of the report, but that would be additional dates. So,
but no more additional than the dates agreed last year.
I can double check that.
Members, whilst those numbers are just being checked, because I think that's a very important number to have here this evening. Would anyone else like to speak on this item, and then we can come back? Councillor Furman.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one for Councillor Bell for the working group. Was there any discussion with Dorset Council about their other sites that they had? And could you just sort of give us some background on what their response was? Because without labouring the point, I think I don't want to presume that the decision of other councillors, but I think we would prefer it not be there, and it would be at the back of the pavilion perhaps. But I just would like some context on that, please.
Councillor Bell.
If I may then possibly pass to this in the town clerk. There's certainly discussion with DC. I would phrase from the communication from DC is quite ambiguous at points and not as clear as we would have liked, and that's very frustrating for the working group. There was a bit of a back and forth over a couple of months or so about the viability of particularly the back of the pavilion, which was the preferred site for the working group and the discussions that went on. Maybe I can pass to Assistant Town Clerk for further detail.
So just going back on the previous point, I can confirm it's the same number of days as last year if we Easter. So with regards to the council back in the pavilion, as you said, third option, seafront master plan consultation happened in August, results will be coming to the next services committee in that time and time again, people want fairground at the back of the pavilion. We were told that next summer would not be viable to have and it's within the appendix, to have the playground at the back of the pavilion due to works going on. However, myself, Councillor Toft, and other officers have been in liaison with Ed at the Harbour Office, and he has confirmed that there are no works taking place on the Pavilion Peninsula next summer. They're tendering for works over this winter, and it'll be next winter that the works will be taken, despite having gone backwards and forwards on numerous occasions, no response. And also, the last response I received, I believe, was probably about 3 weeks ago, and it said that it was they were liaised with their colleagues and there were councillors at Dorset Council. However, due to the ongoing antisocial behaviour on the pleasure pier, it was felt that they would not be in favour of siting the fairground in the car park.
Thank you very much, for that response. Next week, I've got Councillor Roos, followed by Councillor Ferrari.
I have a couple of questions. Obviously there can't be any feedback about fireworks night this year because we haven't had fireworks night yet. So I don't know if we're kind of preempting the feedback from that night when we haven't had that night. Or are we going on?
I think what Mr. Say was alluding to was the Monday night fireworks displays during the.
No, I mean as in the report. We're covering a report that's feeding back from the fairground rides for the whole year, but we haven't had the whole year yet, the fairground rides. And I'm pretty sure from feedback from the previous year that bonfire night is a pretty contentious night. It's a pretty difficult night for businesses. They make a lot of money, but there's a few security issues. So we don't have feedback on that night yet, do we? Because we haven't had that night yet. The other question I have is, were there any comparisons done? Because Councillor Gray mentioned earlier this year that we had 1 week of the summer holidays where there were no fairground rides. I believe there was. The summer holidays started, we didn't have fairground rides. And Councillor Gray asked, could we do a comparison of how that impacted business income and how that impacted the businesses overall compared to when the fairground rides arrived? Has that comparison been made for this report?
Assistant Town Clerk, can you respond?
So you're referring to the first week because last year there wasn't a fairground for last week of July, it only happened during it. There was no committee resolution that asked officers to conduct that piece of work, and that's why it hasn't been considered in this report.
Okay. I'd like to feedback that I had been given the reports and the complaints made by the pavilion and different hoteliers during the summer holidays, as you have, and that some of it is really quite upsetting, especially what has happened to the pavilion, some of the vandalism, the graffiti. But even visiting the site myself during summer holidays, I've seen the people who work for the fairground rides sitting in the street, wandering around banging into people. Some of them have had quite hostile attitudes themselves, which I noted. I just wonder if it's worth looking at the whole, especially with the impact of the pavilion. It's an image, isn't it? We all have an image to uphold. And we want people to feel like it's a safe and friendly environment. And I don't want the pavilion to be negatively impacted due to the toilets being misused and the antisocial behaviour I've seen. So what compromise or what could be done about making that provision better? Because like you said, we don't want the fairground not to be something that's an asset, but how do we make an asset that benefits everybody and doesn't put another business, another big business in Weymouth through so much stress during the summer?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Roos. fortunately, I think we are here to debate what's in front of us now. Those sort of comments would have been useful, I think, to be fed back to the working group is safe to say, but Councillor Bell sort of indicated to me that that's news to him and wasn't brought forward. Next to speak, Councillor Ferrari, followed by Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions, one of which overlaps with Councillor Rood's comment. First question is, given the level of antisocial behaviour that's been reported from the residents this evening, why did the steering committee feel that the balance was in favour of recommending the proposal was still on the table? And in addition to that, if those are going to take place, what are the steps that we could take that could mitigate the problems that are being felt by the various local businesses as a result of the events? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Councillor Bell first of all to respond as chair of the working group, and then the assistant town clerk has further comments.
Just to clarify, Councillor Ferrari, the working group was set up to look at location. We then set about looking at various locations around the town and were asked to come back with the viable options, which is what we've done.
The assistant town clerk has some further feedback also.
Regarding ASB, and correct me if I'm wrong, Claire, but the feedback we received from the Hotel Association this summer was in relation to the operators, not ASB. I don't recall any negative feedback specifically regarding ASB.
I think they're based more on the issues they've got at the moment, yeah.
It was based more on the feedback we received as officers was based on the operating of those fairgrounds, not necessarily ASB. And as reported, and details have been reported, the police have said that there have been no fines associated to or reports linking to fairground.
Very much. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of questions really. First of all, I was disappointed that the internet, the rail, didn't seem to be interested in Jubilee sidings. I'm wondering if they might be more interested if they knew about the costs that now operators have to pay to be on car parking. If they've gone up 82%, it may well be worth the while of South West Trains to actually have the fairground on that site, because they don't yet know, of course, whether they'll get much in the way of car parking. The second alternative that wasn't available to you when you had your meetings was, of course, now by March of next year, there will be a new car park that is not near to very many houses on the old council offices site. Is that a potential site that could be used, owned by DC and available very soon in the new year? So that might be another site that is worth exploring. I know we wanted to be able to take decisions tonight, but I'm afraid that I think that some of the information we've got isn't sufficient to necessarily take those decisions as we would like. The last point, following on something that Councillor Ferrari said, is I think that there is a clear message that also has to be gone through to the fairground operators, because I think they've got a lot more responsibility for undertaking certain things that will make some of the problems that have been created less of a problem. I don't say they can solve the problems completely, but I think they could be asked to do more than they have been, and that be monitored more carefully than it has been.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harris. I'm being informed by the assistant town clerk she may be able to give some further update on the North Quay potential site.
One of our project officers did speak to Dorset Council around North Quay, and they felt that they couldn't make a commitment due to timescales if there's any further delays with the project, so they wouldn't commit for next year.
Thank you very much. Have I got anyone else wishing to make any further comments? Councillor Furman, second by the chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to think, we can't, correct me if I'm wrong, we can't change any of the policy. Are we today just voting on the days and the location, is that correct?
Within the recommendations, well, that's also to do their licence, so as is that we mean, so with their terms and conditions, if you're on.
Yeah.
The only reason I ask is because, Mr. Tay has brought up some sort of good talking points around the expectational ratio of numbers to security officers, which I don't think we specified in the licensing. Have we said you must have this many to a number?
We just said two.
Right, so that's where I think there's some work that we could do, is looking at a ratio of 100 to 1 or whatever it is. I think, you know, officers could do some work on finding out what an appropriate number that is. Also, the toilets that were installed, they were just porta potties, weren't they? I think maybe there's some work around getting a cabin style set of toilets that can be put, and talk about where we position them, if they can be at the pavilion end. So if you're going to the toilets and you're kind of thinking to go towards the pavilion, actually it's a short walk because there's a big cabin right there with toilets. And again, putting that cost on the fairground operator. So Mr. Say, I know that's not perhaps the most perfect thing, but I don't know what you think about that, and Chair, I'll leave it to you to take feedback from the gallery, but they're just a couple of things I think might be considered to help mitigate these risks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Furman. Assistant Town Clerk, any further response on anything?
So we have that decision to make of whether this evening's date, location and terms and conditions in the licence. So this year we said 2 security officers for SLA staff. So actually we change that. It can be, we can put something in there so we can look at ratios, but it's confirmed this evening. We can also put cabin style toilets. We say toilets, we don't describe what type of toilets. That's not true at all.
Come back. Chair, come back with supplementary to council, yes.
Yeah, well, therefore, could you put up a recommendation, please, Assistant Town Clerk? Then I would maybe say that we could accept, I'll wait for the recommendation. So I don't get it wrong. No, looking at the previous details of the report, but well, I would kind of maybe look to the more experienced councillors to help me find a way that we could perhaps accept the dates and locations. However, that we do not accept the terms and licensing, so we can bring those back for.
We could vote on those two separately.
Yeah, of course we can. Councillor Thomas.
I personally would be happy if we could not replace the locations, because it was the smallest chance next March we could get the council office signed. I think that would be preferable to having forecourt.
At
the moment, yeah.
The Assistant Town Clerk, can you respond to that?
So March, we've got bookings happening in April. We need to feed our relationships with our operators based on what's been like the last year aren't great. We need to ensure we need to embed those dates so get them on the calendar. I think otherwise we're at risk of losing potentially travelling fairground because we need to get those dates on the calendar, I'd say. Secondly, in regards to we've asked also council, I know there's a slim chance, but we know what.
Council alike. Yeah, not very good.
Councillor Harris.
It said in today's Echo or yesterday's Echo that it would all be there and clear and the car parks would be available March, April. Now, as Councillor Ferrari has just said to me, the critical thing is the archaeological dig, because that can hold things up. Now, that's due to finish on the 15th of November, so it's not very far away. After that, it's a straightforward process, and it's laid out their dates very clearly. So if there's no problems with the archaeological dig by November the 15th, I think that it is well worth exploring with Dorset Council whether that is a suitable alternative, at least from the Whitsun holidays onwards.
Councillor Harris, we have obviously the option that we can call in any decision based on information available at the time. We don't have that information yet. The information we've been given by that landowner is that that car park is not available to use for this activity. Should that car park become available sooner, then we can review this at a later date with a call in based on new information. Unless the town clerk's got anything to add there. Yeah.
I also think it's important to think about the operators. Is an operator, and I'm looking at one now, really gonna think, is that site the right location? Are they gonna want to rent that site? Is it gonna get as high a footfall as the Pavilion Forecourt? Is it gonna be as visual as a Pavilion Forecourt? I've got somebody, like, I don't know, I think.
This is not right.
You could ask him,
It's
and he could
not
answer.
affecting anybody with any hotels. It's not affecting one of the main businesses in the town. It's out of the way. It's like, it's a place that's not, it's not near any residents. It's not affecting anything. Good place to put it. You made me think about approaching a railway to see if I can rent a car park. Go direct to them.
Yeah.
That is something if operators go direct.
I don't agree with the pavilion. I thought I had to. I've been 60 years with the fairground on this evening, and you just don't seem to acknowledge that you've got a fairground anyway. There's a new concessionaire on the beach with the rides. They don't agree with it. It comes into the town. We're out now in bad weather, working, getting ready for next summer. And some bloody fella from Gloucester comes into the town and takes the cream. That's my opinion. It's a waste of time.
I'm going to sort of draw a line on that now, because obviously we have the
No,
opportunity
it's
to
not
publish
drawing
it.
a line, but it's there. It's the truth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holland. Councillor Roos.
Can we add a C? That there will be an emergency meeting in the new year, should the site at North Quay become potential. Just so that we've got that option. If we want it, we might be like, oh, guess what? Dorset Council really towed the line and they've gone, we can have it.
Or to be silent.
Councillor Roos, in standing orders, we can call that meeting anyway. I don't feel it needs to be part of the recommendation. Right, I'm going to look at trying to sum up shortly, but Councillor Dickinson, you've not yet spoken.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. In the recommendation for the timings, it says that when we have our firework displays, that the fairgrounds can finish later than 9:30. This year, in the bank holiday in August, there was a major problem. And I saw the sergeant, the female sergeant, was absolutely surrounded by youths, and she used all her skills to not be assaulted. And there was 2 officers that were left, because there was another incident elsewhere involving serious knife crime, that all the officers were pulled out of Weymouth and sent somewhere else. So rather than finish later, could you put it in there that the fairgrounds must finish earlier, so that that item isn't overlapping the other item? But I still feel we shouldn't have fairgrounds on the pavilion site. End of story. But that's just my view. But if we could alter the times to finish earlier, not later, than when the fireworks are going on, so that the fair is finished, it's closed, then there's the fireworks. I'm sure that would help the police, because that was nearly a very nasty. Well, fair play to the sergeant, she did really well.
Councillor Dickinson, I think it's important to identify within the paper that the official response from Dorset Police is that they had no reports of antisocial behaviour connected to the fairgrounds. So what you're saying you witnessed, I'm not disputing, but the response from Dorset Police in the official papers here is that there was no issues. And for those members that attended the summer briefings for the 100 Days of Summer, which I don't know if you were present at, we did ask Inspector Goon to feedback on the activities of the fairground. That was requested when that project launched. And sorry, members, can we try and keep talk to a minimum? We asked Inspector Goon to feed back to us on any antisocial behaviour or concerns he had with the fairground or his officers had. And at the end of that project, he categorized, and daily he was in communication with our resort manager. And there was no reports of any concerns of antisocial behaviour during the 100 days of summer, including when the fairground was operating.
Yeah, and don't forget, on that Zoom meeting, the sergeant was on it, and that's where she told us about that incident.
The report here.
Yeah,
Current
I fully accept that, yeah.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Okay, members, we've heard this evening from residents and local businesses about the impact they believe the fairground has on their businesses. We were very clear, I believe, last year within this, that we asked for information to be sent so that we can act. On the one time that we were sent information, a breach of contract license was issued, as detailed within the reports. Other reports were not followed through with an official complaint. And that's what's in the report before us. So, unlike the previous item we discussed, where the residents come back with that information, with those complaints, we don't have that information here amongst us this evening. And I think that's important from my point of view, to recognise that we can only take decisions back from factual evidence that's presented to us as a committee within our reports. Now I'm going to look forward to make a recommendation. I'm going to take, as requested by Councillor Ferrari, this in two sections, but I'm actually going to split that further down to 3 sections on this. So, excuse me, I'm switching between screens. First recommendation I'm going to take is just the dates of the Jubilee clock. Do I have, and it's just dates, not licensing conditions. And that's to clarify, as Councillor Wells just asked, Easter is not included in the Jubilee clock. So it's the Jubilee clock dates as proposed in the agenda. Do I have anyone wishing to propose that as a recommendation? Councillor Bell's proposing. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Taylor. So just on the dates of the Jubilee clock operation, is there any further comments before we go to vote? Can I have a vote then, please? All those in favour as the dates of the Jubilee clock as printed in the agenda. All those in favour, show of hands, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
That's 9-4. Those against? 2. And any abstentions? 1. So the dates of the Jubilee clock are carried. We're now going to look at the dates of the Pavilion forecourt. Councillor Bell, you wanted to add the dates of the Easter break. Can you just clarify that for the recommendation, what those dates are, please?
Yes, sir. 29th of April. Sorry, 29th of March to 14th of April.
So the recommendation which is proposed by Councillor Bell is as printed in the report with the addition of the Easter dates. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Huckle. Do we have any comments on those dates?
Yeah, do we want to add in anything? Because I think, was there an amendment coming from that sort of room around North Quay?
No, because we said we can take that in as.
Yeah, I'm just making sure, because we've named the pavilion forecourt dates, that can still be changed.
Yes, if we can pull that in with new evidence.
Yeah, lovely, thanks, Chair.
Okay, so we're going for those dates as presented, including the Easter break as written up behind me, proposed by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Huckle. All those in favour, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Those against,
Against.
4 against, and any abstentions? 1. Those dates are carried. Now we're going to look forward to the site management arrangements as detailed. Would anyone like to make a recommendation?
This is terms of license, Chair, is a point, sorry, point of order. Point of clarity, for the Chair, sorry, so I'd like to.
Councillor Thumb, can I ask you to-
Sorry, yes, sorry. Janet.
I'm happy to speak, please, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just dying a little bit inside. Yeah, so could I make the recommendation that we do not accept the site management arrangements and bring them back to the next meeting, please? With, I don't know whether we can put in there with considerations towards security and toilet or facilities, if you want to call it. I don't want to leave it too narrow in case other things come up that might be worth it. So I think maybe just facilities, if that's to the liking of members. And then we can put anything else under with toilets if it comes up, you know, in terms of perhaps fencing or I don't know, whatever, you know, want to.
I'm going to ask the assistant town clerk just to give her view on any implications that may have by further delay.
I don't see it being too much of an issue, but I don't see why we can't do it this evening. So if it's a simple, improved toilets, it's like toilet block rather than portable toilets, and also security. I'm looking at Charlotte now, like security ratios as per events policy.
Chair, I'd be happy to make those proposals. I just wasn't sure in terms of the kind of prescribed ratio numbers with the security. I was maybe looking for a bit of research on that before we locked anything down on that. I didn't want to just go on sort of anecdotal advice.
We're going to check as well on licensing because Councillor Dickinson made a point around operating times for institute files. Would you wish to see any further changes to the current operating arrangements, Councillor Dickinson?
Just those times, could they be brought forward to finish earlier than later?
Any specific wordings you're looking forward to make a recommendation?
Well, I wouldn't, because I'll be voting against anything that's done, because I don't want the fairgrounds there, so.
Councillor Harris, you also had your hand raised.
Yes, facilities, it doesn't cover what we're trying to say. We're trying to say facilities, security, all sorts of things. So and you know, the timings would be part of that. So I think we just voted against what was originally there. And then we have to bring something new back.
Or we can work as a committee tonight to bring this forward, because it's an officer recommendation, not a recommendation to propose. So currently there's no proposals on the table for the operating. Councillor Wakeling, I saw you waving at me from the back.
If I could just briefly interject, I spent many years running bars and nightclubs. Mr. Say is completely correct. 100 to 1 is a very standard ratio for security. If they're expecting a crowd of 400, then 4 security would be my expectation. So I would just agree with Mr. Say's comments there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wakeling. And any other comments on the site management arrangements before we move to a recommendation? Personally, just on the aspect of security ratio, knowing the footprint down there, from the time you get the rides in there, I would be surprised. I'm looking for a nod or a shake from one of the operators back there.
I'm not in favour.
I'm just saying, I don't think that you could probably get more than 100 people in the footprint after the rights. So I'm just concerned. I'm just concerned that if we start putting 1 to 100 ratio, could we actually end up seeing a reduction in security based on the footprint in the area?
Come down on a Monday night and see.
There's 2 there now, we need 4.
Yes.
Yeah, can we specify minimum 4 security at all times?
All times?
Yeah, At all times.
Or just on the big event nights?
I'd say at all times.
Okay, any other comments on this site arrangement details? Okay. Would anyone like to make a recommendation then? Councillor Taylor.
Can I just say, I'm not happy at pulling the numbers out of their hats.
Yeah.
This affects
Exactly.
liability for the operators. And, we actually need evidence to base numbers on, not just a finger in the air, yes, it's not really very fair on people.
Okay, so what would the committee like to do about this, this point? We can defer, or we can make the recommendation tonight.
I'm going to propose that we defer.
Proposal that we defer, bring back to the
I
next meeting.
second that.
Seconded by councillor Toft.
That's who I heard.
We are now,
Sorry.
Yeah, on all of them.
Yeah.
So we can come back more educated on this.
Yeah, so we have to narrow it in.
so we have a proposal that we defer the site management arrangements as detailed within the report back to the next meeting. Proposed by councillor Roos, seconded by councillor Toft. Would anyone like to make a comment on that recommendation before we go to a vote? Councillor Roos.
Do we want to add in brackets what we've briefly mentioned tonight, which would be toilets, security, timings, or just everything, anything? Okay.
I'm just going to check, yeah, I'll see the assistant town clerk, what she'd do there. Okay.
Go for it.
Can I ask, as part of that recommendation then, to make sure that this moves smoothly through the next meeting, that we have a one meeting working group to look at this with the officers? Also within that recommendation. Councillor Roos, would you be happy to sit on that working group? It sits in your ward?
Considering I work full time and have a kid, I'm going to say I don't have capacity to take that on.
Okay. Would anyone else be willing to sit on the working group to work with the officers to make sure that?
Get it online?
We have meetings.
I'll happily email though, any reports and stuff.
Councillor Furman's happy to sit on that working group. Do I have any other volunteers?
Yeah.
Councillor Taylor. Thank you. Anybody else? Now, we note your comment at the back, and I've just spoken to the assistant town clerk and once the recommendations have been made, they're happy to sit down with the association before it comes back to committee. And obviously, Councillor Taylor and Councillor Furman will be on that working group, so please feel free to contact them.
Could I be included as well?
Of course you can. Of course you can.
So we've got Can I just mention that whatever the outcome tonight, if it's still remaining on the forecourt for next summer, I've got no other option. I don't want to do it behind your backs, but I'm gonna have to go to Dorset Council. They own the car park and we're their tenants.
Okay, I'm not going to get into that now, because we've taken that.
I don't
vote
want to do
on
it behind your back, I'm telling
that.
you.
That's fine, thank you very much, sir. So, okay, we've got a recommendation that we defer this back to the next meeting. We'll set up a one meeting working group with officers, and Councillor Furman and Councillor Taylor have offered to go on that working group. And it will be presented back to stakeholders prior to coming to committee. Proposed by Councillor Roos, seconded by Councillor Toft. Happy, just checking you're happy with that slight amendment to that. With the working group. Yeah. All those in favour, show of hands. Those against? And any abstentions? Carried, so we'll bring that report back to the next meeting. I just want to say thank you very much to the members of the public that came and made representations on this item. Again, I know it's a emotive subject and it's a hot topic, so thank you very much for coming and providing us with the information, as well as the members who kept us on time in the debate. Should anyone wish to leave at this point, you're more than welcome. We're going to go through now the rest of our agenda as planned. And we're going to move on back to item 7 on our agenda, which is the Green Spaces Service Plan. I'm going to ask Adrian Turner, our Amenities Manager, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. So the purpose of this report is for you to approve the Green Spaces Service Plan for 24-25. So the service plan introduces the main activities for each area, and offers an insight into existing experience and your understanding of the service. Detail proposed objectives, key performance indicators, the risk and the plan for the year ahead. And it's for you to go to the council and to approve it. And I'll take any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian. We have one pre-submitted question or comment on this, so I'm going to go straight to Councillor Taylor first, if you've got hers in writing, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Dodd.
I do apologise, it was just a comment that I wanted to make, and I was under the impression you wanted to comment as early as possible in this because of the size of our agenda. Just on your service plan, I think it's really good. Could be slightly more aspirational in places, but I think it's a basis for a service plan. It's really good. There's a couple of things I wanted to bring up. One was about our cemeteries as being an open space and recreational space. There's an awful lot of people that I see just using cemeteries for walking through, for dog exercise, and dogs on lead, obviously, and for quiet reflection. And I think we could do a lot more with our cemeteries. I was wondering about things like even the Friends group for them, because we've got, certainly one of our cemeteries is an SNCI, and it's beautiful. We get complaints about it being untidy, but that's because it is an SNCI. And I feel with more knowledge and support from the public, we could have some absolutely beautiful spaces there. So that was just one of them. The other one I'd like to comment on was you're talking about planting 100 trees a year. That's all well and good. My experience is that trees don't always survive. So I prefer it to be increasing the number of trees in the town by 100. I know it will take a bit of going back and looking at them, whether they've actually survived. I've certainly planted whips in the past that people have come along and pulled up. So, yeah, we could plant 1,000 and get one tree out of them. And that's not what is the intention of this document. So they would just like 2 comments on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Just to clarify before I ask the the amenities manager to respond on that, would you like to actually make that a formal amendment to the service plan that we are to increase trees by 100 a year?
I would just like to hear the service manager's comments first, please.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you. So the 100 trees doesn't include all the whips. They are mature or semi-mature trees. So that's without the hundreds of whips we plant into areas as well. So that the 100 trees does exclude those whips.
So if we lose one, are they replanted?
We aim not to lose any. We look at watering them. Obviously, if they're vandalised in the summer, then that will be replaced the next winter. So yeah, we would look at replacing that the next winter.
Okay, so you can actually reword it as increasing the number of trees by 100 rather than planting 100.
Yeah, so
I know it's semantics.
So it's assuming basically that we never, it's 100 and 100, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good.
Thank you very much.
Like to discuss about the cemeteries as well.
Yeah.
The cemetery, looking at Friends group, we do use other Friends groups in cemeteries. From some of the parks, we have used them this year in cemeteries. Where the Green Spaces manager feels she has no little capacity to set up any more Friends groups and to manage Friends groups within the cemeteries at the moment. Feels that would be a big ask at the moment to everything going on, but we can look at that and see if it's a viable option.
Okay, I won't want to write something in that is unachievable.
Yeah.
So, I'm quite happy just to leave that as aspiration and fine. And if we can just amend that, just a couple of words on the trees, that'd be brilliant, thank you.
Yes, I'd say that we're obviously gonna have a community development service plan coming at some point, and maybe the Friends could sit into that, so that's something to worth the officers considering. Councillor Tom, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is possibly semantics again. Under the background information, a list of 5 points. As we are now Environment and Services Committee, with the emphasis on the environment, I'd quite like to see work to become greener and cleaner in our activities, as well as supporting our communities and partners to be as green as possible, to actually find its way up the list to the front.
Yeah. So what, so you'd like that?
Yeah, just as the first point, because that is, you know, every decision we make should be on the green agenda. Maybe not perhaps, well, ahead of the well-being of people in Weymouth, but it's one part of the same thing, I just, you know.
Okay.
Councillor Harris.
I'm just concerned, Adrian, why there's no mention of Tumbledown? Surely green spaces now includes Tumbledown. And I thought the whole purpose of the green, what we're looking at for the next 12 months is how to integrate the work of Tumbledown with the work of the green spaces team.
So Tumbledown's still a working project, so is underneath the development team, so Ben Heath's team. Once it's a established project and it's, I don't think Tumbledown will ever be finished and handed over,
No.
but we will be working towards that in the future, for that to become part of that one team. But at the moment, Councillor Harris, especially with the funding that was agreed earlier this evening, I can't see that that's going to be a completed project.
But the project is on the actual facility there. There's an awful lot of green space at Tumbledown that needs managing. There's a huge number of trees that have got ash dieback. That's not going to be Tumbledown's problem, it's going to be the green spaces team problem. So I think we've got to have some mention of Tumbledown in the green spaces service plan, please.
Moving on, Councillor Gray, I think you were indicating to speak.
Yeah, I'll pick up on a point that Councillor Taylor mentioned about vandalism, because we've been on this a long time now. There's been no reported costs so far this year from the Green Space team on vandalism. I'm really keen, because you need to make a decision. We absolutely have to report an account for vandalism. There was only £3,000 last year attributed to vandalism in the Green Spaces team, and nothing this year and nothing the year before. So I'm making a plea that if we have trees that are stolen or damaged deliberately, we need to account for that cost, because we're gonna have to make some decisions in the future, and you need data that's accurate. So if we can report all vandalism, that would be good.
Thank you very much. I think that's more of an operational thing for Adrian to take forward in his role with the parties. So, yeah. Okay, anyone else wish to make any comments on this service plan? So, or do I have a recommendation? The Councillor Todd will just check into, you would just like that point moved up, and I think
Yes.
that there's no concerns with the rest of the committee on that point that Councillor Todd made. I think we'll be happy just to see that switched in the bullet point listing, or if we need any amendments for that. Councillor Taylor, you wanted to see it say an increase of 100.
It's really just semantics, because if they replace them anyway, if they don't survive.
Are they replacing them from the 100 they planted, or are they planting 101 for that replacement?
Okay.
So should we go for 100 additional?
Go for an additional 100.
That's what you want.
At least.
At least.
In case they do 101.
So again, a slight amendment within that KPI that we're going to look to plan an additional 100.
Yeah.
Councillor Harris, I think your comments on Tumbledown are valid. As the service plan stands now, we'll be reviewing it in 6 months, and maybe the officers will feel it's more timely then, or a further 6 months' time again to bring tumble down into the plan then. But at the moment, this is based on the services and the parks and open spaces team currently deliver. So do I have then those minor tweaks? I'm going to look probably to Councillor Toft and Councillor Taylor. One of you like to propose and one of you like to second? Councillor Toft to propose, Councillor Taylor to second. As written then, the service plan, those small amendments. Any comments? No, going to go to a vote then, please. All those in favour? Looks unanimous, but I'm just going to check any against or any abstentions. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 9 on the agenda. And I'm ask Charlotte Langley Ryan, our Senior Resort Officer, to introduce the item. And that will be Fireworks 2024.
The purpose of this report is to recommend 5 fireworks displays for summer 2024, which was informed by a feedback survey following the summer 2023 fireworks season. If there's any questions? Thank you.
Very short and sweet stuff, and there's a rest of your papers. Going to move on now. I was pre-notified by Councillor Harris would like to speak on this item, so Councillor Harris, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. But first of all, I think that the report was nice and good to read, but of course it was exactly what you'd expect, asking people who'd gone to a fireworks show whether they enjoyed it or not. And of course they enjoyed it. So I don't think it actually told us very much. What you didn't ask them was, are you happy to spend £35,000 worth of potential money on producing these fireworks? You didn't ask that question in that report, in that research. So I don't think we've actually got the information in front of us to help us easily make the decision on whether we should go forward with 5 sets of fireworks next year. Equally, I don't know many businesses who are told, if you would like to give some money to us to help us put on some fireworks, we'd be very grateful. But if you don't, we'll carry on ahead and do it anyway. So you don't have to actually give us any money because we're going to spend the money for you anyway. And that's what this report is asking us to do. It's saying, you know, we'd like to get some money for business, but don't worry if you can't pay up, we'll still pay for these fireworks. So I would like to put an amendment or change the recommendation that's there, and I think you should be able to bring one up for me. But basically what I'm saying is the Environment and Services Committee approves spending council resources of 19,800, not the 33,000 being suggested, for 3 Monday night fireworks in the summer holiday period. Officers will seek commercial sponsorship for a minimum of 2 additional displays in the hope that businesses, who of course are the beneficiaries of the crowds, will make the contribution. If sponsorship is forthcoming, then WTC will organise the events alongside the 3 above, but the businesses make us, if the businesses make no contribution, then there will only be 3 displays on offer. That should be up there now.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Sorry, Councillor Harris. Councillor Roos.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I agree with your proposal on one level, Councillor Harris, I'm going to embody Councillor Lambert just very slightly, and say that I would do anything to discourage private displays, anything, including making sure we have public displays. But I think Weymouth Town Council could be more proactive in asking residents to not have personal private displays, but come and enjoy the public display. And that, in effect, helps support people who have PTSD, who have pets and animals who don't enjoy fireworks every 5 minutes. It discourages people from having their kids woken up in the middle of the night by somebody setting off something in their garden. It's more considerate. And I think, although our firework display has an impact, personal private displays do as well. And they're getting bigger, they're louder, and I think they're really, I really want to do anything that discourages people from buying from a supermarket, something that is like a massive rocket going off in a tiny garden. Weymouth is quite a built up area, built up town, we've got a lot of people living on top of one another. I'd really like to encourage people, your tax money collectively is providing you with a fantastic display that you can access all across the beach. It helps support our local economy, it helps support our local businesses. Please come and do that. Stop wasting money buying stuff that you're going to blow up in your garden.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Councillor Roos. Next speaker, Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think that the survey is quite good. I think the survey expressed, it's got to ask the question, did you enjoy it? I disagree with Councillor Harris on that. When 85% say they like it, I think we have to give what the people want. And we take enough off the businesses, perhaps in rates. This is what, I know it goes to Dorset Council, but they have to pay business rates. This is us giving the displays to the people of Weymouth. All right, the businesses make out. A lot of families haven't got the money to do lots of things. So this is a way of Weymouth Town Council saying, come down on a Monday night, enjoy the fireworks, it's for you people. And I think trying to get more money out of businesses all the time is not the right way forward. And I would like to support the five and the recommendation as it was originally put.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I agree with most things that most people have said in some sort of way. Councillor Roos was talking about no private displays, and I mean, the estate where we live, they're already sort of flying around the air, which they do every single year. I don't quite hear quite so many throughout August, but certainly this time of year, 2 weeks before and 2 weeks afterwards, strangely enough, they're whizzing all over the place. I agree with Councillor Harris to a certain extent with the proposal to approach businesses, but we have a bid who was the voice of the local businesses. So I think our first port of call should be down. Let's say perhaps you want to go 50-50 with us, or whatever. And if nobody wants to contribute, well, we'll just put it back. I think we ought to approach Chickwell Town Council, or the Town Council, because there are lots of people that just jump on the number 8 and the number 1, come into town, and then just jump on the number 8 and the number 1 and go home again. So we are, as a Town Council, as Councillor Dickinson said, quite rightly, supporting our visitors and our residents by giving them some free entertainment. But there's lots of other people that are just having a bit of a free ride. I think we should sort of ask. I know lots of people that are coming from Chickwell with a big smile on their face, thinking we don't have to pay anything to this.
Don't pay rent,
Yeah, but I think the business, the bid should put something there.
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. The survey asked all the people who attended, and I think as Councillor Harris says, they're bound to say, you know, they love it. I can't remember myself as a white resident the last time I thought on a warm summer's evening, I want to trek into town to go and look at fireworks. Because apart from anything else, if you go by car, you'll never get out. And the bus services take ages. And I think when we have visitors, we sometimes say, do you fancy walking into town? Now, has anybody ever surveyed the residents, those who don't live in the town centre and it's really convenient to walk down to the beach every Monday evening to ask the residents if they are happy with £35,000 being spent on fireworks, or whether they'd rather see other things. Because we're doing this for the visitors, and it's how much of is it for the residents? How many of those people on the beach are residents, and how many of them are visitors? Do we know that?
Can I ask, Charlotte, she's got any comments on that?
Yeah, the survey was open to residents and visitors, and there were people that did take the survey that didn't go, that are resident of Weymouth. Some said they didn't like it, some say obviously they don't like it. I do have a full breakdown of each individual response, but the survey was open to everyone.
Councillor Top as well, like, if you look at location on item 1 of your appendix, it's who responded back to the survey, and 62% of the responses were from Weymouth residents. And that's out of 759 responses. Councillor Burnham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if there's a bit of a compromise to be had here. In light of Councillor Brooks, your comments there around Bede, local business, and then we've got the other councils, why don't we just wrap this up together and say we'll pay for 3 of them, but we'll also be opening to hosting 2 more, subject to funding from one of them to business, one of them to other councils. That way, we only pay for our 3, and we leave ourselves the potential to have the other ones, and we've got a bit of pressure on our neighbouring councils to actually divvy up some money for what their residents are using as well, perhaps. And rather than just having this sort of, as Councillor Harris said, just saying, well, if you don't do it, we'll pay for it anyway. You know, it's actually being put a bit of a line in the sand on the beach. Yeah. Sorry, I had to go there. Let's get a bad joke in there.
Councillor Burnham almost sounded like he was willing to second a recommendation then later on by Councillor Harris, but I feel it's important here just to recognise that we are allocating £33,000 to these displays. Is part of the recommendation. Now, if the officers can go out and get the additional income for the displays we wish to get sponsored, then that 33 is going to be divided by 5, not 3 or 4. So, whilst there's merit in the proposed amendment that we may see come forward in a minute, we're actually saying, regardless, we'd like 5 displays for 33,000. That's what this recommendation within the budget, as the officers have written, is asking. If they can go out and get another 15, 16,000, then you can have a few more rockets up in the air during these displays and a bigger display. But if not, it's going to be a smaller display because we're asking you to deliver 5 displays, 33,000. So there's definitely merit in what you're saying, Councillor Harris, that you're saying go out and get some more money to fund the 2 of them, but the officers here is, as I can read in the assessment, it would be necessary to allocate a budget of £33,000. We're asking 5 displays.
That's the 5 displays. I'm saying we only need the paper, we should only be putting into the budget for 3 displays. And if the town wants more, or Portland and Chickle want more, they have to pay the rest to bring it up to the 33,000. So I am only recommending 19,800, which is the cost of 3 displays, because I don't think at this time of a cost of living crisis, residents will be happy that we are spending, 6,600 a night, 5 nights of their money on fireworks.
Thanks to Ferrari.
Thank you, Chair. 2 points. The first is, the people who own and work in businesses are our residents too. And I think it's appropriate to supply services to all of the residents across our community, not just pick some and say others can't pay. And This proposed amendment is a very clear statement of we're only going to get 3, because if someone walked through the door to us and said, I know you can got it in your budget, but I want a part of your money now, please. The answer we would give them is no, because we've sorted our budget out for next year, and the bid will have sorted their budget out, and Chickerell will have sorted their budget out. They're not going to be sitting there with pots of money to fund our pilots. So this proposal should be seen for what it very clearly is, which is a cut in the number of pilots exposure from 5 to 3. And on that basis, you can vote for it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Councillor Root.
I'm gonna go from a different angle, and that is I think we should keep it to the 5. And the reason why is because the amount of times I've done the fireworks this summer, and my partner, he goes around loudly complaining about how much they cost. He goes, oh, 7 grand on that, right? And every time he says it, a resident, I've had the taxi company, I've had the restaurant turn around to him and say, do you know how much money we take in though? Do you know how much money we're making? Yeah, but when during a cost of living crisis, when those businesses are struggling at other times, and quite a lot of businesses have struggled to make it this year, I think that is where their saving grace, that's their bread and butter. And I kind of think we need to be pushing that, we need to be promoting that. Don't have your private displays, come down to the beach. I don't hear anybody complaining about 7, even though we both constantly tell people that costs 7 grand. They'll turn around and go, yeah, it's a lot, and then go, but it's good.
Okay.
So, you know.
Do you need 5?
Yeah. Go big or go home.
Thank you very much. Just another question though, the officers. What was the budget allocation for this year's displays? Or maybe our Chair of Finance and Governance might be able to answer.
We haven't constructed the budget yet, so your.
This year's budget.
Oh, this year's budget. I'll refer to the documents.
I believe it was 18.
It was.
So we're putting it up £15,000 a year.
No, because we obviously brought in, on the income line, we brought in sponsorship this year as well. So
Yeah.
if we hadn't brought that in,
Yes.
it would have been 30,000.
Yeah, but what you're saying is because of our sponsorship, we could afford to do the 5 because we got the extra money. We only allocated £18,000 of our own money. My resolution up there is saying we'll allocate £19,800 of our money and hopefully get the money that you suggested we got this year.
But what we did last year was exactly.
Members, can we come to the chair, please?
Chair, mate.
Thanks for Broderick.
But what we did last year was exactly what you said wouldn't work, because we went to them and said, we're doing 5 anyway, will you give us some money? And they said, yes. So.
Councillor Gray, and then I'm going to move forward with the recommendation.
Just listen to the debate. I mean, not sure why we want to change what we did last year, because last year was a success. I think what's necessary, I think, from a budgeting point of view and for the officers, is they need surety of what we're doing, because we have to plan this. So if we're going to ask for the budget to be allocated, we need to trust the officers then. They did it last year. There's no reason why they can't go out and you'll see the income come in on the income line. So just for the sponsorship. So voting for 5 and then trusting the officers to go and look for sponsorship from whoever is probably what they need. And it's about planning. So, you know, whether we have 3 or we have 5, it's still about surety. So you need to understand that. We've got to plan now for the future.
I'm going to move forward now. So within the comments, Councillor Harris, you indicated that you'd like to make a proposal.
Yes, sir.
The proposal is up in front of us. Are you still willing to make that proposal?
Yes. £20,000. I'm happy to say £20,000. They can pay for 5. I don't mind £20,000 paying for 5. But what I'm saying is we shouldn't be putting in more than 20,000. I don't mind if you have 5 and it's 4,000 a piece, or you get business money to make it 6,000 a piece. So if you think 5 is better to have as a security element, by all means, but it must not go above 20,000.
So just to clarify for the writing for the assistant town clerk, you're saying to allocate 20,000 of Weymouth Town Council funds
Yes.
for 5 displays and seek alternative, or are you still sticking to the 3?
I'm happy to go for the 5 in the light of the conversations, because it gives some consistency about the summer holiday. Up to
So-
5.
Okay, thank you very much. So the proposal,
Up to 5.
the proposal from, that we now have on the table from Councillor Harris is for £20,000 to be budgeted for up to 5 displays. We're seeking alternative sponsorship to boost that pot.
Yeah.
Do I have a seconder for that recommendation? Very quick there, which one of you want? Councillor Brooks.
Can we just wait for the recommendation to be written out, Chair? If that's all right, please. Yeah.
So Councillor Harris to confirm that the Environment and Services Committee approved spending council resources of £20,000 for up to 5 Monday fireworks displays in the summer holiday period. Officers will seek commercial sponsorship to make commercial sponsorship to make contributions. If sponsorship is forthcoming, the Weymouth Town Council, how do we want to make word that last bit?
I think you can take that out.
Yeah.
It'll just change the number of fireworks you have each night.
Yeah, it's not at 5, so that's fine.
Okay, so proposed as written on the board by Councillor Harris, a seconder. Councillor Toft. Any comments on that recommendation? I'm just going to put my view across. That is, I think that's asking the officers to go quite far. I'm confident that they will find the funding. Because we've done an amazing team with the resort team and the comms team in finding additional funds this year for seafront activities as seen in the roundups. However, I think our resort team needs some surety really to go ahead and start making these provisional bookings with funding. And I think they also need assurance to go ahead with the events calendar and get that out to print and market our resort in the summer to for the full capacity of what we are offering as a town. And I'm concerned that businesses may not be looking for sponsorship activities until late next year. So I think that's going to really make it difficult for our resort team and our comms team to market these activities, to bring football into Weymouth to spend its funds. And it may prevent activities being delayed. So I personally could not support that recommendation. And I think it worked fine last year with allocating the full amounts and seeing the sponsorship come in with income generation. Is there any further comments before we go to vote? No. So going to vote on the recommendation as presented in red, proposed by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Toft. All those in favour? 3-4. Any against? 7 against, and any abstentions? That's 2. We now open the floor to a further recommendation. I have anyone's making a recommendation.
If the amendment fails, the substantive becomes the motion that you vote on?
No, that was a proposal.
Okay.
Not an amendment. There was no amendment made. It was a proposal made by Councillor Harris, which he's entitled to do under standing orders. We now move forward for someone to make a recommendation.
I recommend the original.
Recommended it as per, and I'm happy to second that, Councillor Ferrari. Any comments on that proposal?
Can I just ask,
Councillor Harris, yes, thoughts?
can I just ask, Councillor Gray, are we saying that in last year's budget, we allocated 18,000 for this, or it ended up costing us 18,000?
Costing us, because we brought in sponsorship under the income line, so what you will see in the budget is an overspend on fireworks, but an overspend on the income or more income.
Because we're still saying to the businesses here that we'll give the displays whether we have whether they give us any money or not.
Check, no.
Of course, Councillor.
I think it's oversimplification to say, if you don't give us any money, we'll just do it anyway. I think the way that I've spoken to Charmaine about it, and Will and Ian, is we are offering the opportunity to businesses to advertise whilst there are teams and teams of people on the beach. So it's not seen as a cost, it's seen as an opportunity to put their business forward. And I think that's the way we push it forward. And I think, you know, places like the caravan sites and some of the other people that I think will be jumping at us. I think two, three maybe. I'm comfortable with the original costings, and I think because we need to move forward and state our case, I think lots of the committee have said it's sort of become a signature, isn't it, of Weymouth and on a Monday night. And I think there are other themes that will come forward at different nights. So I'm comfortable with the costings.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there's no further comments, I'm going to go to the vote. So proposed as written by councillor Ferrari, seconded by myself. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Any against? It's 2 against. Any abstentions? No. That is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10 in the agenda, which is the 6-monthly review of the resort service plan. And that is over to Will, our resort manager.
Thank you. This report in front of you is to provide members a 6-monthly update on the resort service plan, which was adopted in May 2023. This report highlights where the resort team is at 6 months after the implementation. Thank you.
Very much, Will. Don't run away. Any questions? I'm opening to the floor. Is there any questions on the current performance of the resort service plan? You can, or
one more after.
So I believe we just need to note the update. So I think that's, if there's no comments, that's duly noted. So thank you very much, Will. Good performance, and we look forward to seeing you back again in 6 months' time after your next item on the agenda, which is item 11, the Cashless Beach Equipment Hire Trial. And again, over to you, Will.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to provide members an update and a review of the cashless trial that has been undertaken through the summer season in our deck chair hire operations. And we'd like to include this technology in business as usual. Thank you.
I know Councillor Berman is itching to get in on this one, so over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Will. Appreciate the work you've done on this. You brought this forward, and I can see from the report and what we've talked about in terms of transactional impact has been good. I do note that getting the hint of we should do this above among all the other stacks. In terms of, the question is, in terms of infrastructure with Wi-Fi, how far away are we? What do we need to do to action that, and see what we can do to continue this rollout, perhaps?
I think with seafront Wi-Fi, I think personally it's quite a big project to look at. Huge amounts of infrastructure to be put in, and what we're looking to do with the QR codes is actually open up the different phone operators that customers will be using. So you may be on a different operator than I am, and your strength might be slightly better on the seafront. So that's the idea around the QR codes. It also means that we don't need to bring in any card readers, and it should be relatively straightforward until we look at the wider picture of seafront Wi-Fi.
Yeah, thanks very much, Will.
I think the assistant town clerk have a further comment on that.
Also as part of the Super Master plan proposals, obviously we've now been allocated a 100k budget, and it's something we could explore as part of that. And it's also an idea that we were looking at as part with Councillor Dickinson, Councillor Wakefield, Councillor Bell as well at some point about, it wasn't called network, though, it was called,
Mesh network.
that's the one, mesh network, so, look at possibilities like that, so for £3,000, could get a lot more money in, who's selling it.
Councillor Rose, sorry, Councillor Top first.
Chairman, I just wanted to have your confirmation that we're still using cash. We're not going to be excluding any elderly people who have no idea what a QR code is and wouldn't, know where to start. Good, that's fine, thank you.
I think what was indicated there,
yeah,
we'll continue to operate with cash. Some still believe cash is king. Councillor Roos.
Councillor Totter said everything I needed to say.
Perfect, okay, so if there's no further comments, I mean, the only thing I'd like to add, Will, I think we had a brief discussion about it recently in the beach office, is how we can look around people pre-booking their beach deck chair at home. So they don't need to rely on our Wi-Fi network, they can book their seat via an app or web-based thing. I think that may be good. And expect a hit quite soon on that, maybe not your way, but Colin's, as a further development of this would be a good direction. But no, I think, once again, I think this is the result of a PID that come forward. I think it's always worth recognising. I remember the council meeting, Councillor Furman, was it you, Councillor Wakefield, was developed this as an idea. It came to committee, this committee approved the trial, and 12 months later, we've got the resort officer coming back to say it worked, brilliant work, and I'm going to implement it as business as normal. So that's the success that this council can have and the power of a PID. So definitely worth looking at. So we are being asked this evening to approve that the committee supports keeping the card machine for beach operations and encourages officers to explore additional opportunities for enabling card payments at various locations. Going to ask Councillor Furman, would you like to recommend?
I would, thank you.
Councillor Tewkesbury to second. Any comments on the recommendation? We'll move forward to a vote. Those in favour? Right, looks unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 12 has already been taken, so we move forward to item 13, which are information items. Again, members, as I always request, questions on these should have been pre-submitted on councillor questions. But we have made good time this evening, so if there's any burning questions on any information items, I'm happy to take them. If not, members, to note those informations. And at a much earlier than expected time,